Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica Podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner, AFRY. AFRY is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. Hello and welcome back, Marcus, to Urbanistica Podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, how are you?
All good. All good. Yeah.
How was your trip and the conference?
We had our annual conference in Tallinn last week called Place X Nordic, kind of a rebranded version of Nordic Place Branding Conference that we've been organizing for some years.
Yeah.
Kind of same conference, but in a new package. And it was a great conference, absolutely great. I'm partial. I was part of the organizing team, but we had great speakers and great cases.
Yeah, I saw, first I saw on the homepage, like really great speakers. And I was like, wow, this is a great conference. And then I saw like some posts on LinkedIn and how people were like engaged and happy and inspired.
Yeah.
So well put together.
Yeah,
as a conference.
We were kind of overwhelmed ourselves.
Yeah.
We've never seen that kind of engagement after a conference. So many people, sharing the stories and the inspirations. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Is it like in each city every year or always in Tallinn?
It's been in a kind of core Nordic city in the past. And Estonia is pretty convinced that they want to be the 6th Nordic country. So they invited us and said, you guys should be here because we are also a Nordic country. And that was a good move. I think everyone was also very impressed by all the good things happening in Tallinn and Estonia as a country.
Yeah, exactly. So this episode, I'm looking forward. It's a lot of new things for me, for our listeners, and interesting things with the Talent City Index and how you work and why it's important and so on. Would you like to give us like a brief about what is it about?
So Talent City Index is a ranking and analysis of the attractiveness of cities. Okay. So we measure in between 50 and 100 cities in each country we're doing the index in.
Yeah.
So in Sweden, 50 cities, in Finland, 50 cities, Germany being a big country, we're measuring 100 cities.
Wow.
And we're asking those between 20 and 45 in the workforce with some kind of university background. So they could be either professionals or students. So start at some kind of university.
Yeah.
And we ask them, where do they want to work and live in the future? So we can measure the attractiveness of the cities in the eyes of the most kind of sought after talent.
Is it like you ask people in the same cities or no? Do you have like a general base?
We ask people in the country as a whole. So it's basically like a statistically proven sample of the whole country. So in Sweden, more than 2,000 people that represent all regions and all age groups and different professions. Basically.
Okay. So you gather it as a base or data. Then based on what they answer, you have the index, right? Somehow?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. That's the ranking part of things where we can rank cities on general attractiveness, but also kind of family friendliness, safety, innovation, creativity, quality of life, for example.
So these are like the categories of your index.
Yeah.
Is it something like a global or no, this is something specific that you created?
It's an index in each particular country. So it's TCI Sweden, TCI Finland, TCI Germany. Yeah. But we can also ask international talent about their views of a specific country, which we have done for Sweden and the Netherlands, for example.
Okay.
And we ask 8-10 countries, how do you people like talent perceive those countries as a place to relocate to and work in, basically. Yeah. So we can do it both in a country and outside from a country.
But Marcus, how do you get in touch with people and tell them we have this kind of, what do you call it, survey?
Yeah, exactly. It's a survey, and we buy a panel from a company called Sint. And they have global panels. They have panels in 150 countries. So it's pretty much like YouGov or C4 here in Sweden.
Yeah. So you collect the data and then you put it and see what you get.
Exactly. Exactly.
And when you say talent, what do you mean by talent?
I mean, I would say it's pretty much in the eyes of the beholder, in a sense. And I'll explain that. I mean, of course, you can say that a talent should have certain qualifications or kind of attain their certain level of education.
Okay.
But I would say the pragmatic view is that a talent is someone that is needed in a particular place or sought after in a particular place.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. There's a small, there's a southern Sweden region of Skåne. There's a sub-region in Skåne called Österlen, coastal region, with a lot of apple farms. And they lack apple farmers, I heard, quite a long time ago. And they went to the Netherlands to find people that knew how to cultivate apples.
Wow.
Which is a very specific skill set, right?
Very niche.
And that's talent for that particular region, according to the
needs of that region.
Exactly, according to this way of seeing things. And I think that's a very pragmatic idea. So we don't need to discuss, do you need to have university degrees or, a certain skill set? I mean, if you are
5 languages or something.
Exactly. And sometimes it's an industrial process operator you need, and sometimes it's assistant nurses and what have you. Restaurants need people, they need chefs, they need waiters and waitresses and all the rest. So I think that's a good starting point for discussing talent. Yeah,
because I thought it's like talent is, as you mentioned, like you need to have, let's say, master or PhD, you need to manage to speak like at least 5 languages, you need to do this, and like then you are like a talented person.
Exactly. I mean, there are countries that have this talent visa, and then they do exactly what you mentioned. They have a points-based system where they say, like, you qualify as a talent. You can even get a stamp in your passport, I think, in the US or Canada or
I think
New
Dubai
Zealand.
has it as well, something like this. Like
probably.
Yeah.
And that's quite common, but I don't think that's kind of needed. It's the demand that's interesting to discuss.
But for you, like in your case, talent can be changed, depends on the needs of different regions or cities.
Exactly, regions, cities, and their employers, of course, that need to hire the people.
Like maybe I'm a talent in the south, but not so much talented in the north. No,
exactly. I think talent is a fashionable word, but it's just another way of talking about workforce or labor or skills.
But then it's very different from one city to another. Or do you see similarities?
I mean, all cities have their own unique attractiveness profile in terms of what kind of target groups they need to attract that are in line with their profile, so to say. So we see quite considerable differences in the index between countries and between different professions. Different educational backgrounds, different age groups, different stages of life. So your preferences change over a lifetime. So a 25-year-old and a 45-year-old have very different preferences.
That's true.
They're almost like mirroring each other, but diametrically different.
Can you walk us through like a project or like an index that you made? Maybe we can compare, I don't know, like Finland, Sweden, or you have other countries, you decide, but walk us through like in the process how you work with it.
Well, I can give the Dutch example. Where we did it's not the Talent Sit Index, but we used the TCI, as we call it, the TCI methodology, but we applied it to a country instead of a city.
Okay.
So basically same set of questions targeting the same type of talent in this case. So the Netherlands, they really want to attract STEM talent. So science, technology, engineering and maths.
Is it the government who like give you the commission to do the project, or who is the client?
That was a government agency. A government agency that has been tasked with coordinating what the different regions in the Netherlands are doing in international talent attraction. So they needed to better understand what the different target groups think about the Netherlands. What are the drivers to move there? What are the obstacles to not move there? Or obstacles holding people back from moving and much more.
So they call you and say, Marcus, help us with this, and then you start.
Exactly. In this case, they called my colleague Nicole, who is based out of the Netherlands, but I was involved as an advisor. Exactly. They say we want to know more, and we want to know what people in this case, Brazil, Mexico, Egypt, Turkey, Taiwan, Italy, UK, and a few more countries.
Okay, what they think about us.
Exactly. And then we found people in this panel, the synth panels that we buy. We asked them the questions. What do you think about the Netherlands? What do you think about other similar countries? How would you rank the Netherlands? Why would you move? Why wouldn't you move?
How many questions? Do you ask a lot of questions?
Typically 20 to 40 questions, I would say. So it takes a minimum 10 minutes to go through a survey and answer all the questions.
Okay.
Maximum 50 minutes. After 50 minutes, people start losing interest. So.
That's true. But why, why they answer? Do they get paid for it, or what is the deal?
I don't know exactly how they recruit the panels. I think they get paid. There's an incentive to finish the questions.
Yeah.
And this is always like a debate in this industry.
Okay.
How you recruit panels, and is it more or less reliable if you pay someone, or if you give them other incentives, you can win something if you answer a question.
Yeah.
But what we can conclude is that the data is of very high quality.
Yeah.
We dare to say that it's useful, and it says valid, important things about the place we measure.
Yeah. And when you put together the questions, like it's based on what the Netherlands wants to know, and also like on your expertise, right?
Yeah.
Like this question will give us this kind of data. This question will.
Exactly. I would say it's a combination of a science-based approach, how you measure the attractiveness of places, but not only. The client itself can have wishes, what kind of questions they want answered. So we adapt it, but we always keep one foot in kind of the evidence-based scientific debate around how you measure attractiveness of places.
Do you ask about like the city, like let's say design, architecture, or no, most focus on the job opportunities and studying and so on?
Both. We ask questions definitely around jobs, job availability, career opportunities, general economic reasons, could be tax level or salary levels, property prices. But we also ask more place related, like place qualities, amenities of the place. So culture, family friendliness, quality of life, lifestyle, closeness to nature, values of people in the place, if that matters or not, access to public services, schools and healthcare and what have you.
Okay, so this has also like a value in people's life, like the how is the design of the spaces, mobility maybe, and so on.
We're not going too much into depth on specific kind of qualities that could apply only to a certain part of a city. Like we're not asking about design, is it a beautiful city or not?
Okay.
But now you gave me an idea that maybe we should ask about it, because we definitely see that cities that are considered beautiful, they are of course seen as attractive. I mean, I give you an example in our German index. A city like Heidelberg, it's the 50th biggest city, but they rank number 5 in the index. And I've studied for a year in Heidelberg myself. And it's an incredibly beautiful city. It has a, kind of untouched old town. It was never bombed during the Second World War. It's a very kind of, pristine, classic architecture. So I can really understand why people rank it high. So there's definitely something to that, the perception of the beauty of a city plays a role. So.
When you get a lot of data and answers and so on, are these only like in text format or numbers, or how do you see the answers?
It's, I'd say 95% data, statistical data.
Like numbers.
People, exactly. Yeah. People, ranking different factors. But we also try to get answers on a few open-ended questions, meaning like associations, for example. If I say, Copenhagen, what do you associate with Copenhagen? And then you get to describe what comes to mind, your top of mind associations with Copenhagen. So you can create kind of a word cloud for a particular place. Yeah.
Do you get surprised sometimes when you see the answers, or no? Like, like people from this country will answer like this. Sometimes we have an already image about what's going to happen or what's going to be in the answers. How is it for you?
We were definitely surprised. There were quite many surprises. We did it in Sweden last year, in May last year, a year ago, and we were surprised by the Swedish index, and we were surprised in the Finnish index, and then the German index as well, because these these three countries differ quite a lot.
Yeah.
So the drivers differ, the drivers for different professional groups differ. So for example, in the Swedish index, first of all, Gothenburg, the second city, ranked number 1. So ahead of Stockholm.
Wow.
Very annoying for Stockholm.
This is not a good news for us now in Stockholm.
Exactly. And I can kind of understand why, and we try to understand why.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So they're doing some things right in Gothenburg for sure. They both have the quality of life, lifestyle, interesting restaurants popping up everywhere, becoming a cool city, a cool place to be. But they also have a very strong economic base, kind of an old industry that has transformed itself into a newer, much more modern industry with AI and
automotive,
self-driving cars and autonomous cars, and all these kind of things. And I think people take notice. They see this and they understand that this is a strong combination. They also have an archipelago and long coast and all that.
Good combination.
Definitely. In Finland, we saw that it was Helsinki that was ranked number 1. But if you look at the kind of subcategories, safety, family friendliness, quality of life, then Tampere, the third city in size, ranked highest.
Okay.
That was also a surprise. We saw in Germany that Berlin definitely ranked as number 1, but Hamburg was really, really close to take the first position. Munich also ranks high, especially on those quality of life, safety, family friendliness factors.
Yeah. And how was the case back in Netherlands? You when you collect the data and the answers, what is the next step?
The next step is to present the report and recommendations. These are the steps we recommend you to take. And then the client can decide, do they want to kind of engage in or start a bigger strategic process? Then we can help them with that.
Okay.
Kind of finding out how can we improve our attractiveness, which is a long-term process. You need to work with government and businesses, innovation hubs, universities, and all that. Or they can decide to start doing, specific marketing, trying to target these target groups. Okay, exactly. Okay. And then they can use the data to kind of create personas, people that like the Netherlands better than other groups.
Okay.
Age-wise, demographic factors, geography, where do they live, big city, small city, which country, but also psychographic factors.
What is
psychographic? Is basically values. And that's something we are trying to understand more and more. If I care about sustainability or gender equality, does that influence my choice of place I relocate to?
True.
We see that among young people when they choose an employer. They tend to like employers that they view as sustainable and have a certain code of conduct. And we kind of hypothesize that people will increasingly start choosing places based on these factors as well. The values of that the place kind of stand for or are known for. Tolerance could be such a value.
And recommendations, when you give it, is it like based also on like safety, family, like based on the main categories in the survey, or no, it could be in different scales?
You have to explain.
Like you mentioned, after analyzing the answers and putting together a report, you give a recommendation to the client. And this recommendation, is it on different scales or focus on one aspect?
Definitely different scales. We ask, for example, about distance to family and friends. How important is it to be close to family and friends?
Okay.
But that's something that's very difficult to do something about if someone moves to your place. But there are ways of improving the accessibility. So that has an implication for infrastructure, for example. So then you have to focus your efforts on, improving the transport system maybe. For example, there are cities in Sweden that has a high degree of international population, people that move there for work. And they tend to say, I want to have a direct flight back to my home country. Going to Stockholm first and then flying to maybe Frankfurt and then a third leg to my home country. That's just too tedious. Time consuming. My family won't come and visit me. My friends won't come and visit me. I'm not going home as often as I want. So that's kind of an implication. Well, then the city needs to maybe do some lobbying or work with airlines to get them to establish there. So they're definitely different scales.
And let's say, if I'm a city, I'm reading, let's say, your report to Sweden or to Finland, can I use it to build and develop my own brand in the city, or no, each city is a special and unique?
We have a general report where you can get some hints, but then each city can order a report from us, and then we go much deeper. And based on that data, you can definitely start crafting your strategy for becoming more attractive, or for trying to attract those you want to attract. So it's kind of one strategic direction, which is long-term, improving attractiveness over time. And the other one is more like tactic here and now. You know, what kind of campaign can we do, or which channels should we go for, or what arguments should we use when we target our target group?
Yeah, exactly.
So the different ways of using the data.
Do you, like, based on your experience, what are like mistakes that city is doing when they want to work with the branding and all this?
In terms of attracting talent, I would say that one mistake is that cities focus too much on quality of life, lifestyle, closeness to nature, family friendliness. I mean, these are very important. But people also want to know that there are jobs and career opportunities. Especially if you're a smaller place, you have to convince people that you also have a dynamic labor market and cool and interesting jobs. Especially if someone moving as a couple or as a family, then you have to prove that you have jobs for both adults in a couple. So that's definitely one mistake. So it's not enough to say that you have nature. I mean, take Sweden as an example. We have 290 municipalities. Basically all municipalities, also Stockholm, say that they have lots of green areas, parks, forests nearby the city. You can enjoy nature.
Good for you.
Good for you, but it's not enough to say that. You need something else. And then it's typically focus on the jobs as well.
So the economical aspect is very important to market or to build in the branding.
It is, definitely. And there are so many places that suffer from an outdated image, especially for those, let's say that I grew up in a smaller city in Sweden. I have an idea of what kind of jobs that were around in that city 20 years ago when I moved from there. I haven't updated my image. Now I have, because I do what I do, but you know, in my line of profession. But most people haven't. They haven't gotten an updated idea. So they think that the jobs are basically the same. And typically for many small places, there was one industry. And that was kind of boring, you know, industrial processes and not very qualified. But industry manufacturing today is extremely complex. You almost need to be kind of a computer scientist just to manage the machinery or the tools in such a factory. So it's very qualified jobs, even though you don't need a university degree for it.
But like with the outdated image, because I was a part of the expo in Dubai and some COP conferences and so on, and their countries meet, like different organizations, companies, and meet and talk with each other. What I notice, a lot of people have a really, as you mentioned, an outdated image about different countries. Let's say they have an outdated image about Sweden, and even us from Sweden have a so outdated image about like this X country. And when we are there and start to talk and explore, we'll be like, okay, this is very like, how to say, shame that we didn't know that. But whose responsibility to update this outdated image?
It is the responsibility of the place in question to kind of take responsibility for it, because no one else will do it for you. And I mean, you're fighting for the kind of limited bandwidth of people's minds. You know, you can't spend too much effort trying to understand everything about countries. That's why we are basing our decisions where to move or visit or invest on specific cues. We need those cues, and those cues are brand related. We have an idea of what a country stands for, and then we use that information to base a decision on it. We try, if we're going to invest in a country, we may look for more facts and figures, but usually that's also a very tedious process. You may have 10 places that all look equally good. Then you will follow your gut feeling if you need to single out one place to go to, and that's why brands matter. And we do the same when we choose products or
exactly. Then
services.
It's this like the same way of thinking, right? Like values and what is good, what's in it for me.
Exactly. Exactly.
I see a lot of countries is spending a lot of money in like how to say for tourism, like to welcome tourism and so on. Is it something good? Can help the country to attract talent, or only no? This kind of marketing will attract only tourists.
That's a very good question. And we see some interesting patterns there. I mean, I've always figured that if you have visited a place, you would be more prone to move there. And that's kind of the best way to change your perceptions. Okay. Take the Baltics, for example. Many people have an outdated image of the Baltics. They think it's kind of, Eastern European, gray, dull, boring in a way. Then they go to Tallinn or Riga or Vilnius, and they find out that these are really beautiful cities, really progressive, modern, especially Tallinn and Estonia, and they change their image. Yeah. But then we see in some surveys that even though people have been to a place, they're not changing their image, and it's not increasing the likelihood to move to that place. So maybe they already had kind of an informed idea, or they could have become disappointed. Yeah, maybe like the experience that they had when they went to visit were not so good, so they changed their mind. Exactly. So I would say, in general, visiting a place before moving there or investing there is important, but not for everyone. So there are definitely exceptions. Yeah. And let's say, if you give us like some kind of keys when we want to build a brand for city, what should we think about? A lot of people listening to you we have a listener from 140 countries. I think many of them wondering, okay, how can we do it? What are like the most absolutely important elements? Well, I'm mostly interested in how to attract talent and investors. Yeah. Those are the two kind of tracks we work with, not so much with tourists. No. So if I take that as a starting point, I mean, first of all, you need to kind of get the necessary people and organizations around the same table. And start working together. So the public sector, the city hall, or the regional government or national government, they can't do it alone. They need to work with employers, businesses, civil society, the cultural sector, youth organizations maybe. Especially youth organizations, I would say, because they are the future, and they usually have really cool ideas on how to build the reputation of a place. So collaboration between different organizations, departments is one of the keys. Yes, definitely one key. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then understanding your current position, which we are trying to achieve then or offer with Talent City Index and other similar rankings or studies. Okay. So you get an evidence-based approach. About so many situation people, now. Exactly. So many people are guessing or making assumptions, but there are pretty easy ways to find out how you are perceived today. Yeah, more evidence, as you mentioned, like it's reality-based. Exactly, reality-based. And then you kind of need to start crafting your strategy in this collaboration that I mentioned before, which is a really tricky, tedious process. And sometimes you end up with kind of a strategy that it's supposed to please everyone. So it lacks, an edge. It becomes a bit boring, and you don't really say anything. So try to keep that balance. That trade-off is I think a really interesting issue and an important key. You need to dare to kind of stick your neck out and say something that could be provocative for some people. And not everyone will agree. And that's why you also need young people who are more creative and dare to challenge. That's true. In these kind of processes. Yeah. But like when we have a lot of departments and organizations, companies, who has the absolutely main responsibility to bring them together? Because usually if you say everyone has the responsibility, it's not going to happen. Right. But who is should really take action and manage all this? I'd say typically if it's kind of the overall strategy for a place, and then there's nothing there's no blueprint or no one size fits all, but typically it ends up with the communication department. Communication? Yeah. Okay. Which is a good thing if you think about that you need to do some marketing, but it's also a bad thing if you think about your place as a product that you need or a concept that you need to improve on the ground. So then it's more of a political issue that should maybe reside at the top of the city hall, not the communications department, because the comms department can't really doesn't have a mandate to talk about urban development, for example, or change transport and infrastructure and all that. So I think it has to be kind of a strategic process. And comms department should definitely be involved. And then you have the tourism department, they should be involved. Those in charge of investment, promotion, and nowadays we see more and more cities forming units that work with talent attraction. It's becoming kind of professionalized.
Okay, so it's coming more like officially. There's a specific team working with this kind of topic.
Exactly. Those definitely need to be involved. But also, as I said, those that are working on the city, on improving the city, on the ground, so to say.
Yeah. Do you see that cities are copying each other when it comes to branding?
Yeah, definitely.
You see?
Yeah.
In which term?
I mean, one misconception is that a brand is a logo or a slogan. And if you look at some logos of places and cities, they tend to be very similar. There's, the guy who kind of coined the phrase place branding, Simon Anholt, some 15 years ago, 20 years ago. He used to use a slide where he showed some of the brands of destination management or destination marketing organizations. Visit Mexico or visit Sweden, visit Dubai or what have you. And they tend to look the same colors, happy colors, like typically yellow, green and red, inviting colors, So, and that's definitely copycat behavior going on. You don't want to stand out from the crowd, but it also makes sense. I mean, if you look at banks tend to have blue or dark colors because they want to be serious, stable. Exactly. So it's not surprising that organizations do this. And when it comes to slogans, which I also think is a misconception, you don't need a slogan for a place. You don't need a tagline. People won't remember it.
Really?
How many people in Stockholm know that Stockholm is the capital of Scandinavia?
And to be honest, not so many, because I know this. I think it's cool. But then I asked my friends, like out of what we work with, like they have nothing to do with city development or something. And I asked them, do you know that this is this is the first time I hear about it?
Exactly.
And they are living in Stockholm.
Yeah. And it's probably, for some target groups, it makes sense. But in general, I don't think people really care. So branding is more about finding your kind of, your DNA, your identity, and building on that. Dig where you stand, kind of. Don't try to make something up or amplify what you already have is a much better strategy.
But then it takes years until you have a brand, because like what you mentioned, it's so different elements and aspect and people in charge. So to put these together, to synchronize between them, it's going to take years, no?
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, you went to the expo and you felt that people had an outdated image of a place and of countries. And that's basically how it works. And that's basically why it's so difficult to change the ideas people have in their minds. It's an extremely tedious, long-term strategic process. It takes years, if not decades.
Wow.
And in the same vein, it's also very difficult to destroy a really good image. Like Sweden's image abroad, despite the challenge we have in Swedish society now with violence and gang crime, it hasn't really impacted the Swedish image globally.
I noticed that also.
Because a good image is like an insurance. You're insured against bad events, negative events, for some time. So if this, for now, we're good, but for the coming years, if this continues, year after year, this negative reporting, then people will take note and slowly start to change their image of
will
Sweden.
Take over the existing one.
Exactly.
I noticed that, like when I was there, and I speak to people, and I have with me like a colleague, he's a senior, I think 60, 70 years old. And he told me they are talking about Sweden when we were in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's not, they have a very old image, which is good for us because they still think that we are like top in this, but reality, we are not like leading in this field anymore.
Exactly.
Maybe, startups, we are doing good, but not like in this and this and this.
Right.
But the image outside was so good, and like I was so happy. People think like this.
Yeah, definitely. And so many people still talk about, Björn Borg, who was famous in the 70s, and Swedish sin, which, if you would ask someone who's in their 20s in Sweden, do you know what Swedish sin is or was, they would be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So it's really an outdated image that is kind of still there.
But this could be changed if the new situation continue in a country.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if it's like, let's say, I can take an example. Let's say I'm an X country, and I have a lot of war and crime, and my image is so destroyed for other countries.
Yeah.
But then I'm working good, and it's going good for me like the last 5 years. Is it also changing, or no, it takes like double time to go from negative to a positive image?
Well, I'd say at least a decade to really change the image. I think Spain has been, cited as a good example of a country that changed its image over, 1 or 2 decades, starting from the end of 70s, so dictatorship, Franco fell, and then they had the Olympics there. Interesting companies were coming out of Spain, vibrant cultural scene, and some 20 years later, it had a new image. I think, at least 2 decades if we talk about a country. Unfortunately, that's the bad news for those who are in place branding, and that's why marketing doesn't really work. It's more about changing the place.
So the reality.
Change reality, and then you can tell people that you are in a journey to change. You're on a mission, and invite people and tell people about it. You can do that kind of communication, but communications alone won't change the image.
Exactly.
People need to see proof. They need to feel that it's
happening.
True what you're saying. Exactly.
So you cannot just build a story about a brand and that's not actually, you cannot touch it in reality or see it that is happening. It's like just a fake story.
Yeah, precisely. You need to hear from people that have been there or encountered that place. You need to hear the word of mouth stories.
Yeah.
That's the kind of best proof you can get that things are changing, or experience it yourself. Kind of.
Is there a way to speed up this transition from to build this image instead of years and decades? Can we do something to get faster?
I think the coolest examples I've seen involve something that has gone viral. Some kind of campaign or even better event that people find really cool or innovative or creative. So if you don't have something that would be considered as unique, because you have to kind of build your differentiation and uniqueness as a place, you can create something that is unique in terms of doing something in a new way.
Okay.
So there's a city up north in Finland called Oulu, and Oulu has a big, strong gaming sector.
Wow.
So lots of gaming companies, young people working in those companies. They were complaining that they couldn't get venture capital. So they said, we need to move to Helsinki or move to London to be in a place where we can access venture capital. Otherwise, we can't grow. We can't stay here. They invited students to come up with a solution for this, and they launched a concept called the Polar Bear Pitching.
Okay.
Which is a pitching contest where those that pitch, so individual startups, tech companies, they stand in an ice hole in the winter. So this is above the polar circle.
Wow.
Stand in this ice hole and pitch their business idea to a bunch of investors, a panel or jury of investors. And the one that can stay the longest in that ice hole in February, when it's maybe 20 minus, they win. They win the prize, which is then an investment from investors. And world media loved it. So CNN, BBC, they all came there and reported about it because they found it so cool.
Yeah, and also innovative way of pitching and gathering money.
Exactly. And now the venture capital business, they took note. And they are now investing in companies in Oulu. So the companies are staying in Oulu.
Okay.
So that's one way.
Because it was catchy for them and they heard about it, saw it, and started to move.
Exactly. So it was a very communicative event, but it was not communication per se or marketing. It was more, let's do things in a new way.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of basically the only way to kind of expedite the process and make it faster. And then you can continue being innovative and create stories that could become, or events that could become viral. I mean, Faroe Islands is an example. They've been really good at catching the world's attention with really cool campaigns and events. And that has become viral. And now they're kind of victims to their own success because too many people are coming. So locals start to complain that it's overcrowded and why are people walking in my land if you're a farmer,
Okay.
So it's really, they've been too successful. Now they have to mitigate that and work with sustainable tourism and responsible tourism.
Okay. So do you see there are like, how to say, winning cards if a city use like a musical festival or a sport or something, or restaurants that is like going to change the image and bring people?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, Austin is a good example, I think, in the US.
Okay.
It's always been a hotspot for tech and startups, but they have this South by Southwest festival that I think was a music festival first, but then it turned into a startup tech event and attracted people from all over the world. So that really helps to change the image over time. I think most people now don't even remember that it was a music festival to begin with, which is also a danger in that you kind of lose the edge and the coolness if it becomes too corporate.
Exactly. Yeah. This is like, how to keep the balance in the DNA of what you do. But I think in the end, it's about the economy. How would you get economy to make this running? Yeah. You need to adapt with what the market is. I have a question. Yeah. Sometimes, like, let's say I'm a city and I want to market myself and the brand based on 1, 2, 3. At the same time, like the people, the market, they don't want to have this kind of experience or values. What can I do? Should I change my values, my DNA? I can give you, I don't know if it's a smart or stupid example. Let's say I'm a city, I love to work with cakes. And the market, they want hamburger, fast food. So I'm pushing a lot for branding cake, and no one is coming to me because everyone like wants to eat fast food and burgers.
Right.
If you got my, I don't know
definitely. How. Definitely. I think one of the solutions is to invite those people that are, the hamburger eaters. And I think it's very difficult to tell them like, you have to become this, but in a way kind of ask the right questions. How could we as a place, in the future, turn into something new? I think people get really engaged when you talk about the future. If you have a branding discussion, you can talk about history and you're proud of something that's happened in history or proud of something that's happening now, contemporary things. But I think people get really, really engaged when you start building a vision of the future.
Okay.
What is it that we would like to be in the future? Which then you can work with and keep involving people. If you agree on a common vision, we want to turn into this. And then a vision is also a promise in a sense, like a brand promise. If we say that our vision is to become the most creative place on earth in blah, 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 then you can start talking about it and start asking people, okay, this is our vision. How could we become that? So it's slowly about changing the identity and the self-image with communications, but also, of course, doing the right things. If you want to be creative or innovative, you have to do things that are in line with that. So it is, and I think that's the best branding when you start with your identity and try to project a new, more modern identity.
Yeah, like upgrade it.
Exactly. Upgrade it.
Yeah. What happens if cities promising big things and then they don't achieve it? Does it have like a double negative effect, or nobody cares?
I would say that's the worst thing you can do, for sure.
Yeah.
If greenwashing, for example, if you say that you are a sustainable place, but you keep doing things the old way, people will take note and see that you are, in fact, not telling the truth.
Okay.
So definitely a bad thing for your reputation and brand.
It's so interesting to work with the index, the talent index. Do you think about like upgrading it, adding more categories, using AI? How do you work on the development of this method?
One thing that we are now trying to do, as I mentioned before, is to understand values better, how our values link to our choice of places. Okay. That's number one. I would like to focus on gender more, to understand gender aspects of relocation. I'll give you an example. In Sweden we have lots of big industrial investments taking place, especially up north.
Yeah.
And some of these places, they're already suffering from a very skewed gender balance. Typically, young women leave, go to university, and they don't come back. And men typically, or to greater degrees, stay in that place.
Okay.
And now they're building these massive factories, and they need factory workers, they need engineers, they need those construction workers that build the factories. Typical male professions. So they continue attracting more men. Yeah. So the gender balance is becoming even more skewed.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it creates a whole host of serious issues and challenges. Yeah. Prostitution, for example, becoming more common. Because it's such a skewed balance, which is crazy that it has become so extreme. Yeah, and it risks becoming even more challenging. Yeah. So to understand how a place can help employers find a more diverse workforce. So to promote diversity in general, maybe not only getting more women, but also more diverse workforce from other points of views.
Interesting
point of views as well. So I think that's one thing we would like to understand better and be better at measuring.
Yeah. How does AI help you in what you do?
We are not really using it at this point, but we have a sense that we should use it and need to use it in the future, and have some kind of algorithm that can dig into data and process large amounts of data. So I think that's definitely a development we will try to pursue in the coming years.
Do you see, because there are, what we hear, like the Talent City Index is not, how to say, so common or famous. We hear a lot about like the happiest city, this city. Is there a similarity in the methodology, or I don't know so much about like how do they rank the happiest city, or what is the methodology? Do you have any insights about this?
No, I don't know exactly how they do it. I know there are some like general city brand rankings.
City brand
rankings. Okay. But those typically rank also the place as a place to visit, invest, cultural heritage. Okay. Whereas we only look at the place as a place to live and work for professionals and students. Yeah. So our index is much more narrow and limited in that sense.
Yeah. I think I'm not sure about the numbers, but recently in the last years, we see a lot of international talents moving to Sweden. Not sure how much to the north and so on, but Sweden is becoming like very attractive, right? Or
yeah, I'd say we have a natural, like organic attractiveness. Speaking of brand image in the world, before people have a pretty positive view. We tend to be ranked number 10 globally.
That's very good.
In nation brand indices. It's very good. It's definitely very strong position. Yeah. For being such a small country. So I think we are the highest ranked. Maybe Switzerland is a bit higher. Yeah. Switzerland and Sweden are probably the highest ranked small countries. I mean, in relationship to size, population size. But what we have been quite bad at in Sweden is to actually welcome those that come. We are much worse than our neighbors, Finland and Denmark and other countries like the Netherlands, for example, or Canada. They have pretty advanced processes for attracting people, for welcoming people, for getting people to, or helping people to settle in. Okay. Whereas we have had kind of an ambiguous, relationship to this. Should we help people to come? But now this year, the government has given a mandate to 11 government agencies to begin improving the coordination between these government agencies. Which is a step in the right direction. Yeah. It's definitely a really good step. That's good. So now we are improving slowly but surely. But we have lots to catch up because our neighbors are much better.
In the front, yeah. And Marcus, when you work with this method, what is your challenge or challenges you face?
I mean, one challenge which runs quite deep, and it's almost a philosophical challenge, is why do people actually move to a place? I mean, we can ask people in a survey, why would you move to a new place? Or why did you move to a new place? And then they say maybe jobs, career, family friendliness, but what's the real reason why people are moving?
The deep, the honest, the true.
Exactly. So I think there's something with like fundamental psychological, social processes going on.
Okay.
In the same way as we choose, a brand, a product, or how we choose a car, or how we choose a partner even. I mean, there are reasons why we do this. And I'll give you an example. Like in branding theory, you can talk about functional, emotional, and self-expressive reasons. So if I buy a drill and I drill a hole in my wall and I put up a painting, the drill has a functional use to me.
Yeah.
But the painting as such can also be of emotional value. I feel something when I know that I have the painting and see the painting.
True.
But it can also have a self-expressive value. I say something about myself to my friends and family, people that come and visit, if I have the painting on the wall. The same can go for a car. I mean, if I drive a BMW, it's a fast car, so it's functional, or it's, good to maneuver in heavy traffic. But it's also emotional. I feel something when I drive it because it has a strong brand and it has a meaning. Yeah. And it's self-expressive. Look at me, I'm driving a BMW. And if you translate that to how we choose places, what is it that makes us choose a place? I mean, people move to big cities, despite the fact that big cities are congested, expensive, hectic,
polluted.
They're in many aspects very bad places. But we still move to them. Why are we doing that? If I'm moving to New York, am I doing that because of, I can get a job where I make money, or is it because I feel something? I identify with, I watched Friends or Seinfeld and identify with New York. Or is it because I want to say something about myself in my social circle? Look at me, I'm moving to New York. So I think it's probably a combination of all these. But I think to really understand the deeper driving forces,
that's true.
And it's so difficult because people you can't capture them by asking them.
Exactly. And maybe they don't tell it exactly in the answers they answer. So you need maybe to look behind or between lines and like build a story to see what is, or what are the main reason, or the honest that maybe they don't tell.
Exactly. Maybe if you are doing like a deep interview or a focus group, then you could capture some of these dynamics, but it's still very difficult.
Okay, so every time you see like, okay, what is like behind these words?
What's the real reason? Yeah.
Interesting.
So I don't know how to do it. Maybe AI can help in the future.
So this is one of the challenges you have. Other challenges you face when you work on this project? This kind of projects?
I mean, reliability is a challenge, we figure. Do we get, if we measure Finland in January, would we get the same result if we measure it in February? That's the reliability.
Okay.
And we actually did that with Finland, and we got kind of the same result.
Good.
Which may have been pure luck. I don't know. Like, are people telling us the same things? And then something could have changed. But talking about that brand images take ages to change, it's not so likely.
Yeah.
So we're now doing Sweden year 2 in June, and that would be kind of the big litmus test. Is the methodology reliable?
Okay, to compare it with the last years.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And now we're adding more cities. We measured 50 cities. We want to measure 70 cities now. And we want to broaden the target group and measure the whole workforce, not only those with university degree. So that might change the results.
Yeah. I noticed this when I work a lot with community engagement and placemaking. And I notice when I do, when we talk and do workshops in the winter, people usually are negative and not so happy about what is happening outdoor. When we do it in the summer or good weather, people are so positive and so on. Yeah. Do you think it also can affect how they answer and what time you send out the survey?
That's a really interesting thought. Most probably, yeah. We did it in April, May last year. Now we're doing it in May. So, and now it's good weather here in Sweden. So maybe people are happy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Tell me, how do you work? Like, how big is your team? What are the disciplines working on this project?
So we're 10 people, and it's mostly people with a background in political science, geography, marketing, I'd say. And we have a few data analysts, and they are typically engineers. So really good at statistics and math. So they do the counting. So Yeah. Really clever people.
Mm-hmm. If you get 1 million Swedish crown, which is like I think $100,000, what will you do with this money? What do you want to try as a project?
I think the two things I mentioned earlier, like the gender balance, to measure how you can attract a balanced gender composition, if you like. I think that would be one for sure. And the second one would be the kind of understanding the deeper underlying motivations, driving forces for relocating to a new place.
Yeah.
Third one could be looking at sustainability and green transition. So there's so many places that now want to take the lead in the green transition.
Yeah.
And they are attracting investments that are taking the lead, like battery factories that we see in the Nordics and other parts of the world. So how do you attract people that first and foremost have the kind of formal qualifications for working in those industries, but also the right values? And how can you measure where you find these places and these people in what places and who they are?
Yeah.
Because then you can kind of speed up the transition if you can identify the kind of talent pools around the world that resonate with sustainability and what you want to achieve in your place. I think that would be a really cool thing.
Yeah.
Now in a decade where we really need to speed up, climate change measures and adaptation mitigation.
Is there like how to say the talent pool idea and concept? Is it really working? Do we have something like this, or no? It's like a concept on theory.
It is working for some places.
Okay.
I mean, Copenhagen has been a front runner in Europe, a pioneer. They have managed to build a talent pool with some 20,000 people that have shown interest in Copenhagen and Denmark. So they are running basically digital campaigns to recruit people, and not all people are ready to move. They may show an interest and they sign up somewhere for something, and then they end up in this talent pool database basically, and say, well, interesting, but I have a family, I can't move this year, I may move next year. So that's one group. The other group is those that apply for a job but they don't get the job. So they have already been kind of pre-qualified. They've shown that they're interested in that place. So the talent pool becomes a strategic asset which you can do retargeting with, and you can post challenges, and you can communicate with these people, offer new jobs, and build kind of a loyal fan base of people that are somewhere else in the world, but they're interested in your place.
Okay,
that's a really cool talent pool concept that I like, that some places are now trying to do as well.
It's so interesting, like what you work with and all, like, because it's on the city scale, but also regional or country scale, so you can move between different scales.
Yeah, for sure.
It's fun.
For sure.
Yeah.
And Denmark is a good example because it's a quite small country geographically, and they have 5 regions. And the 5 regions have come together and built a national marketing machine, basically, or branding machine, where they try to attract people from elsewhere around the world. So they're acting as Denmark together, but it's 5 regions working together. So I think that's really smart.
Yeah.
In bigger countries, that might be difficult to do that.
It's because of the scale?
Probably. And, few regions and not so many decision makers you need to get into the same room. So
exactly.
That's easier.
Yeah, it's faster.
Yeah. So you can definitely move between the scales. And then when someone says, I'm interested in Denmark, then the competition starts. Then each region can present their arguments. You should come to our particular region, not their region.
It's like more like a healthy competition.
Healthy competition, for sure.
So before we move to the next part of this episode, what are you looking forward in 2024? What is going to happen in the coming 6 months? Anything like projects, events, something else you'd like to share with us?
We're going to launch a special edition of TCI called TCI Lifestyle Regions in a couple of weeks, which is a ranking of regions that are typically not administrative regions. They're more like functional or historical or cultural regions that maybe exist only as a brand or concept in people's minds.
Okay.
Like Småland in Sweden. Småland is known through especially Astrid Lindgren's, the children book authors' books. That's such a region. It's not an administrative region, but it's definitely a strong lifestyle region. We associate a certain type of life with that region. So that's something we're going to measure and understand, because we see in other rankings that so many people want to move to these places.
Yeah.
So they rank high.
Yeah.
But people are not moving to these places. And again, why are people really moving? So it's something holding people back.
Yeah.
There's an obstacle. So can we identify that obstacle? What is it that they would need to do to convince people to take the plunge and actually move?
So interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. We're doing it with 7 more or less rural regions in Sweden and Finland.
Wow.
They're all partners in this project. So that data will be tremendously interesting.
How long is the project going to be? 1 year or more?
Less. We started in January to build the partnership, and we launched the survey a couple of weeks ago. And we are now at the point where we have enough answers. So we'll start analyzing the answers next week, pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But
so
this
in a couple of weeks.
We can follow on the homepage, right? Or your LinkedIn also. You're good in putting out stuff. I like it.
We'll tell the world about it. It's really cool data.
Yeah.
And then Sweden, TCI year 2, we're launching in Almedalen, the political week in Sweden, end of June.
Great.
Then we're looking at other countries like Norway or the UK for the future, for the autumn maybe.
Yeah.
In terms of events, we just had our annual conference. We're now looking for a place to organize our next conference in May next year. So
do you do open calls, or how do you...
Not per se an open call, but we talk about that we are interested in getting hosts. So if anyone knows a good host, then we're open to discuss, for sure.
Awesome. A lot of things.
A lot of things happening.
Yeah. That's great. And I wish you all the good luck in all the projects. And I'm following you on LinkedIn, and that's how to say, get updates about your work, because it's so interesting. Like, again, as I told you, like different scales, like city, place, city, regional, and countries. Yeah. Interesting.
It is, for sure. Power of 10, as you would call it, placemaking.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And now it's about you. In this podcast, we talk about projects and people behind the projects. So tell us more about you. Take us back in time. Tell us about where you grew up. How was your childhood? And we're going to talk also about your passion and why you do what you do now and so on. But first, start with the story from the beginning.
The story from the beginning. I grew up in a small community, kind of bigger village type of place outside Nyköping in Sweden. So it's an hour south of Stockholm.
Yeah.
So countryside, basically, but a village, big village, with parents and a sister and a cat. And I still love cats. So comes from that period.
Yeah.
I was really into sports. I was doing lots of sports. That's what you do in these kind of places. Kind of
football or hockey or
football, tennis, martial arts, taekwondo, athletics. I was a high jumper. I was pretty tall, so I was good at jumping high. And I got to travel a bit through sports. So I think that's kind of one part of the key to why I like places and cities, because I got to travel to other places. So that was pretty much my my childhood in a nutshell.
And then when you study high school, and what did you do after?
I studied high school in Nyköping. Then I did the military service. I studied for a semester in London, studying English. Then I moved back to Sweden and started university, where I studied political science, business administration and marketing, and cultural geography. Social geography.
Which university?
Uppsala, mainly.
Uppsala.
And Stockholm to some degree.
It's more, basically, you kind of study what you work with now, kind of, right?
Exactly. It was the perfect combination for what I do now. I use what I studied every day, which is a blessing in a way.
Right. You're lucky.
Because there's so many people like, I studied this and now I do that.
Now I do
and
this.
There's no link between it. But for me, it's like,
Yeah, so no
perfect.
time wasted.
It's pretty cool.
How did you find your passion?
When I already in high school, I was really interested in international politics, international affairs, and I figured I would like to work in international relations or in diplomacy.
Yeah.
Then I studied these disciplines at university, and my first job was at an international organization based out of Copenhagen, working with the 10 countries around the Baltic Sea.
Okay.
So the Baltic Sea region, or Nordic plus, Nordic plus Baltics plus a few more countries. We did a project called Branding the Baltic Sea Region. This was like, I don't know, 15 years ago or more. And place branding didn't really exist as a concept or discipline. And we invited those few people in the world that had coined the term place branding to different workshops. And I got completely hooked. Like, this is so cool. This is so much what I want to do. Yeah. And I still had to write my master thesis for both political science and marketing. So I wrote both about place branding. Okay. Yeah, that's where it all started. Yeah. But then I went on to have other jobs in government and European Union, European Commission. Yeah. And in other sectors, basically. But I always came back to the idea of, I should follow my hobby and my passion and work with places. Yeah. And I kept it as a freelancer hobby. But then after a couple of years, I realized I need to move into that industry fully. Like full-time? Yeah, exactly. Which I did like 15 years ago. Time flies. Yeah. How did you, like, and what did you do, like, as a career? Like which companies or which? I started working for a local Swedish company and began building kind of the international business of that company because they were all only acting in Sweden. Okay. So we started doing business in Finland and Norway and outside the Nordics increasingly. So that's how it all started. Yeah, yeah. And then my current company, Future Place Leadership, is basically a spin-off from that company. We changed name and we started focusing both on Sweden and international markets. Interesting. What motivates you to do what you do? I'm as a political scientist, and I'm always been extremely interested in politics and societal issues. So for me, it is a political choice to do what I do because I cannot do something else. I need to work with something where I improve things in society in different ways. Yeah. So even though it's a business we are running, there is a passion. And I think that passion applies to all of us in the team, that we have strong driving force to achieve results that go beyond pure business. What happens if you can't change because of different rules? Like you want to push and change and bring something positive, but then you cannot. Those situations are tricky. As I said, I'm a political person. I have very strong values around fundamental universal principles, like democracy, for example. So we have done projects in non-democratic countries, but it doesn't feel good when we do that. Okay. Because I think, or we want to help a country becoming more democratic. So there is definitely always a clash of interest when you look at in what kind of countries you want to do projects. If we can help a country improve, then by all means we will be happy to do then it. You give your hand. Yeah, definitely. But helping kind of sustain status quo in the country wouldn't feel 100% good, I'd say. If you name two things, one thing is something you're very proud of, something you did in your career and you're very proud of. And the other thing is something you did, and now if you go back in time, maybe you did it in another way or not doing it at all. Like, what are these two things? The first is that I started a parallel career some years ago. So quite late in life. I was 39, I think, when I started. So I'm now a military officer in the Swedish Armed Forces. Wow. And I did it like 20 years after I had done military service. Yeah. So I had forgotten everything. I knew nothing. I was a complete beginner going back to the military. So it's called reserve officer. So I do part-time work in the Armed Forces. Wow. Which was extremely challenging, being a beginner, going outside my comfort zone basically on a daily basis. And that was really challenging, but also cool. And I'm happy that I did it. I'm proud that I did it. And for me, it was a very political move to do it because for me, the armed forces in a democratic country is kind of the last guarantee, the last safeguard of democracy, of freedom of speech, of rule of law, and all these values that we take for granted in Sweden. But if you look at the world order nowadays, those values are under attack. Democratic space is shrinking. non-democratic countries are sometimes becoming more aggressive and imposing their will on other countries. So for me, it made perfect sense to do it, but it was a choice that some people really like, why are you doing this
not easy
now, at 39 instead of when you are 20, when you usually take that move or do that career move. So
it's a lot of like training and like physical and mental, right?
Yeah. It's both physically and mentally challenging, I would say. Maybe more mentally challenging than physically in the training, because you have to deal with quite many complex situations. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. And something you did, and if you go back in time, you would do it differently or not doing it at all.
Differently or not at all? That's a tough one. Differently, not at all. I mean, I was in a hurry to go to university when I was in my early 20s. I felt like I have to, do this and then, get a job. I can't become too old before I start my university studies. But if I would go back now, I wouldn't have been in such a hurry.
Yeah,
I would have done more, interesting things, taking a sabbatical kind of things, learning more languages.
Yeah,
definitely studying more languages. Going to countries and learn a language in that country. I did some of it, but definitely more. So that I would have done differently.
I can feel this situation, because I also like rushed to university and from bachelor to master, and now like if I look back, I was like, okay, why all this rush? Like, come on, half a year or 1 year is like not a big deal. It's a good investment for the coming 50 or 60 years.
Yeah.
So I can feel what you feel.
Yeah, and it's just getting more and more difficult to learn a new language the older you get. So like now I wanna, but
don't forget. Interesting. And when a person is passionate about what they work with, people, it's hard to have a work-life balance and put time for hobbies or other stuff. How is it in your case? Like, how do you see your work-life balance, time for family, times for hobbies?
I'm pretty good at managing it.
That's good.
I'd say I've had periods in my life when I work too much, but now I've reached kind of a good balance, and I have my tricks for doing that. So definitely spending time with family and friends.
Yeah,
taking the time to do that. Exercise is very important for me. I go to the gym almost every day.
Yeah, I also see the results. So
typically during lunchtime. So that's kind of the break. I can work hard in the morning, and then I go during lunchtime, and that's like I'm longing for lunch, so I can go and do my thing and disconnect.
Okay.
So I either gym or running. That's like the best way to keep stress at bay.
Yeah, exactly.
And de-stress or unwind. So for sure.
Yeah. And do you have hobbies now, or no? It's more about like meeting friends and socializing. You have something like specific?
It's exercise and sports, I would say.
Yeah.
So play some basketball, some martial arts, but
cool.
Family and friends for sure.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a foodie. I like trying new restaurants. I'm not good at cooking, but I'm good at trying new restaurants, and I want to try new restaurants. I love that. Theater and museums. I like nature, like trekking, hiking, mountain biking, fishing.
Do we have a good restaurants here in Stockholm?
Yeah,
we have, right?
Definitely.
But is it like this city that new restaurant open every month, or like do we have a new restaurants coming, or no? It's not that so many that opens like a new restaurants.
I would say it's difficult to keep pace if you want to try new restaurants. So there are so many restaurants I haven't tried that I want to try. So I don't feel that Stockholm has become too small. But it's also fun to travel to other places and try restaurants there. But Stockholm is definitely big enough for now. So.
Good. So Marcus, if you, before we move to the last section, if you work with a profession that's not related to what you work with now, what would you like to do?
If I would dream, I would like to be kind of a gardener or landscape architect.
Wow.
Being outside, working with your body, working with your hands, building things, creating things.
Okay.
Not just creating PowerPoints or rankings. That's kind of the dream. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
for sure. But more realistically, I think it would be going back to international relations, international affairs. I mean, working for the European Union maybe, or an international organization. But if I would dream, then definitely being more outside.
Interesting. Yeah. And what do you want people, like in the future? What do you want people to associate you with? Like when they read your name, hear your name, what do you want people to remember about you? Now we're talking like far future.
It's a difficult one, and difficult to answer without sounding pretentious, I think. But I mean, I talked about universal principles before. And I think I kind of always take the fight for those principles, which can be, it can create a bad atmosphere, in work context or at the dinner party, social circles. Yeah. But I can't keep quiet if I hear someone, making a racist remark, or if someone, denies climate change. I speak up and I take the fight. And I'm kind of proud of it that I do, and I still do. I don't lose that passion, and it wouldn't be me if I wouldn't do it. But it's also a kind of a disadvantage to do that calling. I can't control that calling to do it. And for some reason, I hope that's something I would be remembered for
like standing for the values.
Standing your ground, and
I think it's good. Of course, maybe like you're not going to be a friend with everybody. If you like defend the values and speaking the truth and so on. But in the end, like, this is what we want, like the right side, no? Yeah. Instead of like just saying yeah to everything in order just to keep relations or something like this. Yeah. In the end, it's like these relations are fake because they are not built on something true.
Yeah, well, true, yeah. I guess people like when people are authentic. And
Cool. So now we are in the end of the topic of the episode. 3 questions. The first was about like messages. First one is that you give a message to yourself. So what is your message to Marcus?
Keep being passionate about what I do. Because I have a really strong passion for both my career choices and other choices in life. So keep the passion going.
Keep the passion going. And 3 messages to our listeners.
I mean, places, cities are becoming more important for those that want to attract talent, for the economy, for employers. So they need to understand how the place is perceived and work with the place. And the consequence is that you need to have a data-driven, evidence-based approach for doing that. And then measuring the attractiveness of a city is important in order to do it the right way. And the third principle, I guess, would then be really applying the data, using the data in your strategy or in your tactical activities, your marketing, or whatever you do as a consequence of the analysis. So those are 3 key messages that I would repeat. Yeah,
like use the data further and make an action plan. Yeah, make use of the data, basically.
Exactly. But not only data. I mean, you also have to listen to people and get their views and agree and, follow your gut feeling sometimes. Are we doing the right thing? Does it feel right? Yeah. So find a good balance, strike a good balance.
Yeah. And the last question in this episode is going to be asked by you. I don't have more questions. And it's your time to ask a question to our listeners to reflect. What is your question?
That would be, what role do you think values play in our choice of places or choice of cities? Do we really follow values? Do we care about the values in the place we're moving to? And how much do we actually care about values?
Interesting.
Is it just a marginal thing, or is it
like a fundamental
thing? Yeah.
Good question. Well, Marcus, thanks a lot for inspiring me and our listeners. Very cool what you work with. And keep up the good work, and hopefully see you again and talking more about the findings from your coming projects.
Thank you so much for having me. True pleasure. It's really cool to be here.